and I think in the future, the next few matches, those things will go Spurs' way, and the narrative around Ange and Spurs will go away, and I think people will start to be a lot more positive towards them. Hello everyone, my name is Sean from the Brentford Hive, and in today's video Chris has asked me to put together a match preview for the Brentford versus Tottenham game in the Premier League. I'm very honoured to be here on Chris's channel, thank you very much for having me. Without any further ado, let's jump straight into the video. So Chris has given me 10 questions here to answer for the video. The first one is, what have you made from Brentford's season so far? So we are 4 games into the season, it's a very small sample size, but what I can tell you is I've been very impressed. We played some of the best football that I've seen Brentford play in the Premier League. It's been brilliant. The goal, the Brian Mbeumo goal, our first goal of the season against Crystal Palace, was some of the best quick pass football that I've seen from Brentford in the league. Against Manchester City last week, we absolutely dominated them for the first 25 minutes. So it's been a really good start to the season, and considering that in our first 4 games, the 2 away games we had were away at Liverpool and away at Manchester City, 2 of the top 3 hardest games you could have this season away from home, the fact that we're here on 6 points I'm very, very impressed by. The only real cons that have come from the first 4 games have been things that you can't really control, injuries mainly, the fact that Hickey and Henry are still out, the fact that Igor Thiago is injured after his first match in pre-season, the fact that Johan Visser was injured last season, Matthias Jensen was injured on internationals, and those are the main cons. But other than that, everything I've seen on the pitch has been really, really positive, and we've looked really good. The next question is, how would you describe the job that Thomas Frank has done since joining Brentford? So when he took over from Dean Smith, his first run of matches were pretty poor. We looked pretty poor, we didn't pick up many victories, and it just wasn't looking very good. I was one of the people, including a lot of Brentford fans really, were saying, would he make it past his first season? And he did, which obviously we're very pleased about now, looking back. And we went on to have one of the best transfer windows in Championship history. We brought in the core of our Premier League team, the likes of David Raya, Brian Mbeumo, Matthias Jensen, all coming in on the same transfer window. You'll see on screen now, I'll put up a picture. It was amazing. That transfer window, looking back, just everything about it was so good. David Raya has now gone on to be a Champions League goalkeeper of Arsenal. The other players, when they're fully fit, are the core of our team in the Premier League, coming into our 4th season now. So the fact you bring in all those players in one transfer window is one of the best transfer windows that I've ever seen. Thomas Frank's done a brilliant job, honestly. We wouldn't be where we are without him. A lot of people obviously rightfully give praise to like Hive and Toney and David Raya, etc. But Thomas Frank deserves a lot of praise himself, because we've seen a lot of great managers come up from the Championship and decide to play their own football. They want to play the way that they want to play against whoever they're playing, and they don't really care about the opposition. And I think we've seen in the last couple of seasons, you can't survive by doing that. Thomas Frank, when he came up, said that he's going to play a style of football he doesn't really like to play. He's going to play the back 5, and ultimately it got us, it kept us up that season. The next season it got us, I think, 18 points off of the Big 6. In one season we took 18 points off of the Big 6. We did the double over Manchester City in the 22-23 season, so that was just exceptional. Last season obviously was plagued by injuries, but we still have not touched the bottom 3 at any stage of any Premier League season. Not even for a minute have we been in the bottom 3 of the Premier League, so that is exceptional in itself. The next question is, were you disappointed to lose Toney, and were you surprised that he ended up going to Saudi Arabia? So if anything, it was the opposite. I was actually pleased to see Toney go. I think obviously he's done an amazing job for the club. I am actually making a video on my own channel, the Brentford Hive, later on this week about Brentford fans' opinions on Ivan Toney. Were they happy to see him go now that he's left? And lots more stuff. So stay tuned for that video on my channel later on in the week. But in terms of, was I personally happy to see him go, or was I sad to see him go, I was very happy to see him go, because there was a small period where I think Wolves and Nottingham Forest were interested in Johan Visser. I believe Wolves made an offer of 25 million. And there was a very small period where there was a chance, a very small chance, that Johan Visser could leave the club and Ivan Toney stay, and that would have hurt me a lot more than the inevitable outcome. So the fact that Ivan Toney left, I think, was the right thing for all parties at the time. Was I surprised to see him go to Saudi? Not really. I think he ruined his chances at any of the big six clubs, mainly Arsenal. Chelsea was still kind of coming in for him on deadline day, but he ruined his chance to go to Arsenal. I think if he had conducted himself a bit better, he would be at Arsenal right now. He only really has himself to blame for the fact that he's not, because obviously the interviews that happened, they went terribly. So was I surprised to see him go to Saudi? Not really, because ultimately when you get to deadline day and there haven't been any offers for any teams, it's always in the back of your mind, will Saudi come in? And thankfully they did, and it worked out well. The next question is about Tottenham Hotspur. What are my thoughts on Spurs this season, and also Ange Postecoglou. So my thoughts on Spurs are really, Spurs this season have been the prime example of tight margins. If you look at the game against Leicester City, if you look at the game against Newcastle, and if you look at the game against Arsenal, they're all such tight margins there, where if small things go Spurs' way, suddenly they have 12 points from 12 points possible, and they're the top of the league, and everyone's saying that Spurs are going to go on title charge. It's just small things that haven't gone Spurs' way, and I think in the future, the next few matches, those things will go Spurs' way, and the narrative around Ange and Spurs will go away, and I think people will start to be a lot more positive towards them. You dominated the games against Leicester and Newcastle, you deserved to win, but ultimately you just weren't clinical enough. As for Ange Postecoglou, I think there is pressure on him now. You barely scraped by against Coventry, but I think the fact that Ange Postecoglou is only starting to get some negativity now from maybe outside sources, it's kind of strange, because Erik ten Hag, obviously every other day, there's questions, will he leave, will he stay, should he be a Man United manager, and the only thing that's really kept him in his job are the two trophies that he's won at United. Obviously he spent a lot more money than Ange, but I feel like there is pressure on Ange, but I don't think he should be sacked. I think what he's shown at Spurs is he has got a clear identity, and he's just lacking those one or two clinical finishers. Dominic Solanke has only played 2 games so far for Spurs, and one of them was the North London derby, where obviously he's up against probably the best, duo back two in the league. So we'll see in the next few games if Dominic Solanke can bring his form that he had at Bournemouth into Spurs, and if he does, he'll look a lot better. Dominic Solanke, yeah, but Kulusevski, I've been very impressed with. I think he's probably been one of your best players this season, and he's the one that I'm most afraid of coming into this game. The next question is, what did you make of the 2 meetings between Brentford and Spurs last season? So the first meeting was obviously on the first game of the season. It was at the G-Tech and it ended a 2-2 draw. The second meeting was in January-February time and it ended 3-2 to Spurs. So the first match, obviously first game of the season, first game of Ange's career at Spurs, there were lots of question marks about it, and I think a draw was probably fair. I think it got us off to a really good start of the season. Spurs went on a really good run then, where I think they were unbeaten until game week 10 if I'm correct, so they went on a very good run, and I think Brentford for a short period were the only team to take points off of Spurs, so it was a very good start to the season for us. The game at Spurs last season, 3-2, was a game again of tight margins. Spurs scored 3 goals in a very short period of time in the second half, and just like this season, those chances could have gone against you, you could have missed them, Brentford could have won the game, or it could have ended a draw. So that's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about tight margins, and I do think Spurs will be fine this season. So last season, the 2 meetings were fine. A bit disappointed to take nothing from the second match, because obviously we did score the first goal, we led, and then we kind of, we let you guys have all of the ball in the second half and just dominate us for those 10-minute period where you scored 3 goals. So it's a bit disappointing, but ultimately, you were the better team on the night and you deserved to win. And if it wasn't for Doggy's weird back pass, it would have been a bit more convincing on the scoreline. The 6th question is, what is my favourite memory of this fixture? Honestly, it has to be the first Premier League victory over Spurs. 22-23 season, Ivan Toney was suspended for the match. Johan Visser and Brian Mbeumo turned on the charm. Rico Henry, I think, got a goal line blocked. Damsgaard played really well. We won 3-1. It was a brilliant memory to watch that game. And yeah, that's got to be my favourite memory of the fixture. The next question is about Spurs. Which Spurs players do I fear going into this match? So, I did allude to it earlier in the video where I spoke about Spurs and Kulusevski. He's the one I fear the most. I think if Kulusevski has a really good game, Spurs will have a really good game, and vice versa. If he has a really poor game, Spurs could have a really poor game. He's been kind of the difference maker. He was the difference maker against Coventry, and I feel like he could be the difference maker for you on the weekend. So he's the one I'm most fearful of. I think if we can keep him quiet, it could be a very good game for us. The next question is, which Brentford players should Spurs fans look out for, and what would my combined 11 be between the two clubs? So which Brentford players should you look out for? Obviously, most Spurs fans know about Bryan Mbeumo. He's going to be probably our biggest goal threat, but if we are going to win the game, the player that's going to make the biggest difference for me is going to be Mikkel Damsgaard. He's levelled it up in the last few appearances he's made for us. Against Southampton, he was man of the match. Against Leyton Orient, he was one of the best players on the pitch. Against City, for those first 25 minutes, he was exceptional. He's going to be the difference maker. If we win on Saturday, he's going to be the player that, you know, conducts strings in the middle of the park, and he's going to be the player that really, you know, gets us going forward. Bryan Mbeumo will probably be on the score sheet. He'll get the goals and the assists, but Mikkel Damsgaard is the one to watch out for. So as for the combined 11, I'll put it on screen now. This is what I've gone with. I've gone with Vicario in goal, 3-5-2 formation. Flecken wasn't very good last season. He's levelled up this season, but I still think Vicario is the better option slightly. Back three of Romero, Van de Ven and Pinnock. That's the best merge between the two teams' defences. My two wing-backs are going to be Pedro Porro and Rico Henry. I forgot to mention it a bit earlier, but this is an injury-free 11, so everyone fully fit. That's why Rico Henry is here. Of course, my midfield has Bazuma. It's really a toss-up for me between Bazuma and Norgard. I've gone with the Spurs man. I've also got Mikkel Damsgaard. And then in the 10 role, I've gone with Kulusevski. I think he's been brilliant this season. And then up front, I've gone with Heung-min Son and Bryan Mbeumo. It was again a toss-up between Dominic Solanke and Heung-min Son, but I think Son is still, he's one of the best players to play for Spurs in the Premier League era. He's up there as one of the best wingers in the Premier League, full stop. So he's got to be in this team. And obviously Bryan Mbeumo, lots of Spurs fans will know who he is. He's going to be a real test to Destiny and Doggy on the weekend. The next question is, what kind of game am I expecting? I'm expecting, honestly, a really open match. I don't think either team has a particularly great defence. We're missing our two first choice fullbacks. We're going to be leaking chances potentially. I feel like Spurs are going to be leaking chances with their high line. It could be, honestly, it could be like another 3-3, 3-2 type result game. I'm going to get onto my score predictions in a minute, but in terms of what type of game I'm expecting, an open game. The midfields will probably dominate the game. I think whichever midfield has a better match, that team will probably win the game. So my final question from Chris is, what is my predicted lineup, and also what is my predicted score? So for my predicted lineup, I'll put it on screen here. I've gone with Flecken in goal, a back three of Van de Ven, Nathan Collins and Ethan Pinnock. My two wing-backs are going to be Keane Lewis-Potter and Christopher Ayer. Midfield three of Norgard, Janelt and Damsgaard. And up front, we've got Bryan Mbeumo. And the only change from the City game is Kevin Schade coming in for the injured Johan Vista bench. We've got players like Fabio Carvalho who can come on and really make a difference. I am excited for this game. It's probably been the most excited I've been for facing a Big Six club in a little bit. I'm excited for this match. I feel like Spurs are going to go into the game with honestly a lot of pressure on them, and Brentford are going to go into the game with not a lot of pressure on them, because it's not really a game Brentford are expected to win. So it's really just a free hit. Go out there and play your best football, and if we play how we did in the first 25 minutes of the City game against Spurs, I really think we could cause a lot of trouble there for Spurs. So as for my predicted scoreline, I've spoken to a lot of Brentford and Spurs fans this week, and actually I've not met a single person who has predicted a Spurs victory, which I found quite surprising, even the Spurs fans I've spoken to. Honestly, I'm probably going to go with a 2-2 draw. I think it will be a tight game like I said before. Could be a 3-3, could be a 3-2 if one team is to win, but I'll go with a 2-2 draw and probably end up with like Kulusevski, Solanke and Mbeumo scoring. So that is it for today's video. I've been Sean from the Brentford Hive. If you want to follow me, I am on Twitter/X, TikTok and YouTube. I haven't uploaded recently on YouTube, but I will be uploading a lot more videos, including a video about Ivan Toney coming later this week. Thank you very much for Chris for having me on his channel. Make sure to subscribe to him. He puts out great content every single day about Spurs and England. Thank you for having me on. Until next time, bye.